It has now officially been a year since the passing of Kentaro Miura, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Kentaro Miura, because in my opinion, Berserk is probably the greatest manga of all time. It's one of my favorite anime of all time. It's been steadily climbing up the rankings of what I consider my personal favorite. And because of that, I just want to pay some homage and just mix this in with some of the concepts that I talk about regularly, right? So when we're talking about just boldness, right, or shock value, this can relate to dating and relationships. This can relate to music. This can relate to a variety of things when it comes to having to present yourself. A lot of people take a mentality of wanting to warm people up to things. But when you know you're going to do something that's going to be outside of the box, oftentimes boldness is one of the best ways to do it, right? Shock value. Not all shock value is something that lacks substance. I didn't look at the exact definition, but you know what I mean by that. You know, we all saw how crazy shit was on Twitter with people trying to rip down Berserk and Kentaro Miura because of the gratuitous violence and the sexual violence and things like that occurred within Berserk. But one, there's just a real aspect to it of diving into the deeper psychology of the depraved aspects of human nature that a lot of people like to shy away from. A lot of it is tapping into the shadow and the darker subconscious, the things that people shy away from, the things that happen that people don't want to talk about, and being able to integrate that into a fuller conversation. On page 1 of Berserk is Guts having sex with a woman who then turns into a demon. Then he puts a cannon in her mouth and blows it up. We know that's we know that is Slan, right? I think they called it the Horror Princess of the Uterine Sea or some shit like that. I don't remember the exact name of it, but that is a very big attention grabber, right? One purpose of making a bold introduction or a bold statement is that it weeds out the weak. The people who are truly interested are going to go deeper into it. But those who do like it, they're going to be further locked in. They're going to be further dragged into the story, further captivated. And this is something that happens when you're being very bold with women about your sexual intentions, right? When you express yourself in a way where you don't try to disguise what it is that you're trying to do and try to disguise the things that, you know, your sexual interest. When you're bold with it, she doesn't like it. She's going to turn away from it and say that, you know, you're whatever it is, or she might disrespect your honesty and walk away. But if she wants to do it, the fact that you're bold in that way, if she has this receptiveness towards your masculinity or your dominance or whatever it is, then she's going to be further enamored, further and captured, further ensnared into what it is you're trying to do. There's something to understand. It's the attention grabber. It's the shock value. You know, and oftentimes that's one way of, like, in my experience, doing things that way has helped me give women like different types of orgasmic experiences and throat training and all kinds of things that they haven't done before, you know, getting into BDSM, because I led with it boldly from the jump. The women who didn't like it, they walked away. But the women who did, they were into me even more than perhaps they would have been if I took a more passive approach, right? And there's a certain level of respect that's there due to the honesty, right? But another thing to understand is this. When it comes to shock value, think about it from the perspective of music. A lot of artists that I really like, sometimes people think that, you know, being popular with your music isn't always about how good you are. Most of being popular with your music isn't about how good you are. A lot of it is about your ability to catch someone's attention, but then to be able to hold their attention. So the shock value at times will catch someone's attention, then someone who likes what you have to say, or they like your further artistry, they'll be drawn into what's going on. They'll be drawn into your music. Like, one of my biggest inspirations when it came to music in general was the Odd Future. Like, that was a big movement. It was a big moment in time that came along with my development, my growth into becoming an adult. And before that time, where I would listen to Tyler, the Creator, and I would listen to Frank Ocean, and I would listen to Haji Beats, and I would listen to Left Brain, and I would listen to Earl Sweatshirt, and I would listen to Damo Genesis, and I would listen to all these different people. You know, I would listen to the internet. You know what I mean? Well, they weren't a part of it the whole time, but, you know, Sid the Kid. I would listen to all these different people. And oftentimes what might first catch your attention would be sometimes the shock value. A lot of them at the time were atheists. So they didn't see any issue with speaking on topics that would make it seem like they was devil worshippers. I know we got to keep it a bug. But that shock value attracted people in. Saying those sacrilegious things, doing things along those doing things along those lines was something that really drew people in. But then when you see that there's actually substance and there's actually music there that's enjoyable and all these different things are taking place, then next thing you know, you may have somebody who's a fan for life. And Earl Sweatshirt, still my favorite rapper to this day. He's been my favorite rapper for 10 years. Frank Ocean is my favorite artist pretty much of all time. He's been my favorite artist for like 10 years. Tyler, the Creator, is one of my favorite producers, one of my favorite creative minds, period. And a lot of these things were things that occurred, right? So you have to understand shock value. Look at Eminem. A lot of people in the mainstream do not really give too much of a fuck about how good you can rapidy rap, right? But when you can say something that catches someone's attention and it draws them in, an attention grabber, then that often pulls people in to then giving a fuck about how good your actual skills and your actual artistry is. And this is something that I really took away from Berserk. The first panel being what it was is something that really shakes you up, sets the tone, and lets you know that this is not shonen. This is seinen. This is for adults. This is not for children. And instead of trying to make it children friendly and then sneak the stuff in on the back end, on the very first page it lets you know what it is, and then it goes forward with a story that is a lot of people's favorite stories that there is. A lot of people's favorite fictional work is Berserk. And it's not because of the shock value. It's because of how deeply it dives into the idea of, it's like how deeply it dives into the idea of the darker aspects of psychology and the overall spectrum of the human mind and philosophy and all those different things. So this is Coach Brody. I'm out.